What's up guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I've got another Chelsea news video for you guys where I'm going to be discussing Billy Gilmour's loan move to Norwich and the effects that Jadon Sancho's imminent move to Manchester United could have on Chelsea's pursuit of Erling Haaland this summer. So let's get into it. News has come out over the past couple of days that Billy Gilmour is on the verge of completing a loan move to the recently promoted Norwich, with confirmation expected to be by the end of the week. Now, I'm not going to lie, my initial thoughts about this one were he definitely would have had interest from clubs higher up in the league, and he's more than good enough to play at a higher level than Norwich. And I just remember how bad Norwich were when they were promoted 2 seasons ago, despite playing an attractive attacking brand of football. So that just left me underwhelmed by this proposed move. But looking into it a bit more over the past couple of days has made me more optimistic about the move than I originally was. There's a few underlining factors that make the move make more sense. Farke, the Norwich manager, was the Dortmund B team manager whilst Tuchel was there, and the two apparently have a great relationship and Tuchel trusts him greatly, which has probably played a significant role in this deal coming to fruition. And if this is true, it's nice to see the manager having an impact on the loan destination of one of our youngsters, as too many times we've seen players go on loan to clubs that play a completely different brand of football to the manager at the time. And I think it's a nice alternative to the strategy that Guardiola used with Foden, where he preferred him to stay at Manchester City and to play his style of football instead of going to a championship club, for example, where they aren't going to play his style of football at all. Farke himself does play a similar style of football to Tuchel, obviously not exactly the same and not to the same success level, but he does play with the double sixes that Tuchel deploys, so Gilmour would be learning a similar role in a similar system, and that'll be extremely important in his long-term future if Tuchel is to remain at the club when Gilmour returns next season. Tuchel and the club obviously see him as the long-term Jorginho replacement, and although an exit for him this season seems very unlikely, I can see him making the return to Italy that his agent has not shut up about next season. And that's when Gilmour could return with a whole season of first team experience behind him and hopefully make that spot in the starting 11 his own for the next 10 years or so. Now, although I do think Gilmour is capable of playing at a higher level than Norwich, I'm somewhat encouraged with this move because it at least shows that Chelsea and Tuchel have a long-term plan for him, which I can't remember ever being the case for another player. So from that point of view, it's probably the best move for him and his long-term Chelsea future, especially while Tuchel's still in charge. And I just hope that this season, Norwich are able to strengthen their squad this summer after losing Buendia, just to give Billy the best chance and the best shot of succeeding this year. And this move does leave Tuchel with an interesting dilemma, as Billy leaving would leave us with just 3 options in centre mid: Kante, Jorginho and Kovacic. And I think you need a 4th option in there, as 3's probably a little too light. We saw Jorginho struggle at the tail end of last season while Kovacic was injured, where he just looked tired and off the pace in the last few fixtures of the season. The prime example of that being the Arsenal game, where he pretty much chucked the ball in his own net. Tuchel would be left with 2 options to fix this predicament. He could sign a player to fill this hole. We've been linked with players capable of playing in the role vacated by Gilmour all summer. We know about the Declan Rice links, but West Ham are just going to ask for stupid amounts of money for him. And as good as he is, and as well as he would fit in, I honestly can't see the board parting with the 100 million that West Ham are quoting for him. And unless he's trying to force a move, they haven't really got any need to sell after securing Europa League football for next season. I think the more likely option is that it opens up an opportunity for one of the many midfielders we have out on loan to come back and impress Tuchel in pre-season. We literally have so many options in that position out on loan, and I know none of them are really a like-for-like replacement for Gilmour, but I'm sure that Tuchel would be able to get a tune out of at least one of them. I'd instantly write off Danny Drinkwater, as it genuinely seems like he's given up on football and he's just waiting to drain that last drop of his contract from us. The Barkley experiment also seems to have run its course after a disappointing loan at Aston Villa, and it seems he's just never going to re-find his early Everton form consistently, at least. He does have 2 or 3 game purple patches where you think, oh, could he be? but he never does, and I think it's probably time just to sell him and recoup any money we can for him. I would say the same for Bakayoko, and I'm sure many of you guys would agree that it's probably best to cut our ties with him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he did stick around for pre-season. Now, this is just me speculating, but PSG were heavily linked with him whilst Tuchel was in charge at the club. So he might be interested in having a look at him during pre-season and potentially keeping him as that fourth choice central midfielder at the club. And one other thing to keep in mind with Bakayoko is he only has 1 year left on his contract, and Chelsea don't loan out players with just 1 year remaining on their contract. So if he isn't able to extend his contract for a year and no one's willing to pay the money that we're asking for, then the most sensible thing might be to keep him at the club as their fourth option until his contract expires. The last two options are Conor Gallagher and Loftus-Cheek. Now, with Gallagher, he would be my preference if any of these players were to return. He impressed last season at a truly dogshit West Brom team, and I would look to see if you could get him a loan higher up in the table, ideally at a team like Leeds, so he can continue to get consistent game time. But I think having him stick around, obviously not getting the same amount of game time that he would if he was to go out on loan, but to train with higher quality players and learning under one of the best coaches in the world would be a better option than loaning him back to another bottom tier Premier League club like Crystal Palace, who have seen constantly linked with him for like the past 2 seasons. And if I was given those two options for Conor Gallagher, loan to a bottom tier Premier League club or just to keep him at the club, then I think I would go with keep him at the club. I think loaning him to another bottom tier Premier League club would just stagnate his development. You really need to get him moving up the league. So if that isn't an option and a team like a Leeds or a Wolves doesn't want to take him on loan and you can't get a good foreign team to loan him, then I would probably keep him at the club as that fourth choice option. Now, the last option I'm going to talk about potentially filling that void left by Billy Gilmour is Loftus-Cheek. Now, this is a tough one because I absolutely love Ruben, and I'm sure many Chelsea fans do. But it does seem that his time at Chelsea is coming to an end, and a disappointing season at Fulham certainly won't have done him any favours. Tuchel, though, himself has spoken highly of Loftus-Cheek, comparing him to Michael Ballack, but that in itself could be a problem because that is not really the role in the team that Tuchel would be looking to fill. And although none of these players are like-for-like replacements for Billy Gilmour, Loftus-Cheek and probably Barkley are the two that I would say are furthest away from a like-for-like replacement. And Loftus-Cheek has said that he would like to come back and fight for his place in pre-season, so I'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. But I wouldn't expect any of these players, bar maybe Drinkwater and Barkley, to be loaned out before pre-season. So Tuchel is able to have a proper look at them like he has for Gilmour over the past 6 months or so. And whoever impresses him the most in pre-season will most likely be the one that stays, as there are pros and cons for all of those players going out at loan or staying at Chelsea and fighting for their place. And let me know what you guys would like to see. Would you like to see the club splash the cash on a Declan Rice? I'm sure many of you guys would. Or would you like to see the club give someone like a Loftus-Cheek a second chance? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, I'm just going to quickly finish off this video by talking about Sancho to United and the potential effects that could have on Chelsea's pursuit of Erling Haaland. Now, United and Borussia Dortmund have reportedly agreed on an £85 million move for Jadon Sancho, and this could potentially have pretty big impacts on Chelsea's pursuit of Haaland. Now, we know all teams are struggling financially since the pandemic, and reports were coming out when Dortmund were looking like they weren't going to qualify for the Champions League, that they were potentially going to need to sell at least one, if not two, of their stars, being Sancho and Haaland. Now, obviously, we know they did end up qualifying for the Champions League, which meant they probably only needed to sell one of their stars to stay afloat. And that does appear to be Jadon Sancho to United. And I've seen people saying, well, that's it. Chelsea aren't going to be able to get Haaland now. And I don't think it's as simple as that. I think, now obviously I can see that point of view, but I don't actually think this changes the case at all for Chelsea. I don't think Dortmund were ever really looking to sell Haaland. I think the only way they were ever going to sell is if Chelsea were able to meet, or any team were able to meet the 150 million price tag that they set for Haaland. We saw them do the same last season with Jadon Sancho. They wanted that 110, 120 million from United. United weren't able to meet it or didn't want to meet it, so Dortmund didn't sell. They didn't have to sell, so they didn't sell. And I think it'll be a similar situation this season with Haaland. So I don't actually think this Jadon Sancho to United changes things too much. If Chelsea want to sign Haaland, they know they have to pay the 150 million that Dortmund are asking. And I don't think Dortmund will budge on that. They don't have to now. They've qualified for the Champions League. So now it's up to Roman and Chelsea whether they want to splash that 150 million on Haaland. Apparently Roman Abramovich has readied an 150 million pound offer for Haaland. I don't know how true those rumors are. I wouldn't bet on them. I would just keep an eye out, because for certain this is not going to be a quick deal. This is not going to happen over the next few weeks. This one will drag on for most of the summer. Don't be surprised if Chelsea don't bring in any players for the next few weeks. The first priority is definitely to get rid of this bloated squad, get rid of some of the deadwood. And the only number one target seems to be Haaland. So they're not going to chase alternatives. It's Haaland or bust. And that's not going to be an easy deal to complete. So don't be frustrated if we're not bringing in players every single week like we learned last season. Just stay patient. And for certain, it'll all be worth it if we sign Haaland. And if not, then we'll just have to be patient for another year. And we'll get him next year for half the price. We know he has a £75 million release clause. So we just need to have another good, solid year. Fight for the title, do well in the Champions League again, and then just convince him to come next year. If we can convince him to come this year, and we keep on the upward trajectory that we're at, then there's no reason we wouldn't be able to convince him last year. Now, that's all I've got to say on that and for the video. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, and if you're new around here, subscribe to stay up to date with new videos. Thanks for watching.